And how about you, Thomas?
I think I echo pretty much every single thing Nick said there. I think that really covered the entire spectrum. I 100% agree with the community. I think it's just in the, you go back maybe 10 or 20 years and you had some interesting bug that you had no idea what it was. And if we go back even before the days of email, you might either never have got it ID'd, or you'd have to, go all the way into the museum, and they might have to have a look through all their collections. And you have this process you go through where it might end up taking weeks to get an ID back to you. And now exactly as Nick said, you can literally have an ID within 10 seconds from someone on the other side of the planet, which is something I think a lot of people take for granted now with the internet and being able to access anything and everything at any time. But I still think it's really amazing that someone who's on the other side of the planet can be interacting with you essentially in real time, and being able to offer up their expertise and knowledge completely free as well to you as well, just out of their own good. I am probably slightly obsessed with getting things to species IDs. I absolutely hate going out and seeing some cool organism and then not being able to get it to species. Even though I know many things can't get to species from photos or are undescribed, I still have this great drive to get them to species. And I get this great sense of satisfaction and gratification when they do get to species. So I think iNaturalist has hugely enabled that process for me, where I think before I started using iNaturalist, I would say I had a decent knowledge of biodiversity, but certainly orders of magnitude lower than what I do now. So not only is it getting other people to be able to identify things for me, but also it's empowered me to be able to identify my own things as well, as I'm sure Nick can attest to as well. The amount of knowledge I've gained using iNaturalist in the past few years has been absolutely exponential. And I'm just constantly learning from other users, both from them actively identifying my observations and saying, okay, now I know how to identify this species, or just browsing through cool photos and then stumbling upon discussions that people have had about how to identify certain taxa, and filing that one away in the memory for hopefully the next time I go out and see that organism. So it's just it's both an active and a passive learning process, which I think is one of its great strengths, is that you can have these direct interactions where someone is actively identifying something for you, or where you're just browsing the site and you happen to have these serendipitous discoveries where you're just looking at, a cool photo of a bug or something, and you come upon this whole discussion which leads you down all these rabbit holes, and you look up all these papers, and then you just have this increased knowledge. And I think I keep coming back to iNaturalist because I also like paying back that favor as well. It's such a big thrill for me when I get things identified and I know what the feeling is like. So I like to pay that forward as well. And there's been so many people that have contributed to my observations and helped me out. So I like to be able to do that for other people as well, and kind of hopefully increase our collective biodiversity knowledge. And as Nick mentioned too, hopefully these contributions end up really bolstering conservation efforts and our scientific knowledge into the future. There was a report which came out recently which looked at bushfire impacts on Australian invertebrates. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like, of the however many I'm absolutely pulling numbers out of a hat here, out of the however many thousands of invertebrates, Australian invertebrates there are, terrestrial invertebrates, some ridiculous number, like only maybe 13%, it's probably even lower, have more than 3 individual records. And there's so many thousands of these species that literally don't even have a single data point on the ALA. And I think iNaturalist is so amazing because it's filling in those gaps. So there are all these species that we know almost nothing about them. Half of them are probably described 100 or 200 years ago. We know nothing about their ecology. We know nothing about their distribution, the species associations. And you've got people from all over the country and obviously around the globe as an extension of that, filling in these knowledge gaps. And even just something as simple as a photo that shows it's not just a bug or whatever species it is, but it might show a plant that it's on. It might show it feeding on something. It'll now tell you what kind of habitat it's in. It tells you the general area that it's in. It tells you things like the time of year or the time of day. So a single photo or a single observation on iNaturalist has so much information packed into it that is just non-existent for so many of these species. And I think that's one of the huge benefits of the site, is that if we were just leaving it up to professional scientists to have to go out and try and fill these knowledge gaps, it would be impossible. There's not enough of them. They don't have the resources, don't have the time or money. We can't be everywhere at once. But now with iNaturalist, you're leveraging everyone in the country can be a citizen scientist. Everyone can be an iNaturalist. And not only just from a broad spatial perspective, but also on things like private land. So Nick mentioned he has more than 1,000 moth species on his property. So that's absolutely an incredible pool of knowledge and of species information that would be very difficult, if not impossible, for professional scientists to collect. So that's, I think, perhaps an undervalued aspect of iNaturalist. Yeah.
Well said, you guys. And I totally agree, the educational value, but also there isn't many hobbies, for lack of a better word, where a completely new person can connect with straight away complete experts. And no one's a professional iNaturalist really, but the experts in their field are always interacting with completely new users, and you don't find that in sports or other fields particularly often. So it's one of the unique features, I think, and it's just citizen science, and it's the internet in a sense done well to what it can do.